Here are the top stories this hour. Federal government and ASU signed new agreement aimed at improving quality of university education system. Two more Rivers State lawmakers withdraw support for Siminalayi Fubara's impeachment process. Court adjourns Omoyele Showere's 1.2 billion naira rights enforcement suit against Inspector General of Police. On the foreign scene, head of Uganda's electoral body says he has received threats ahead of election results announcement. Good evening, this is News at 7, Western Spring Television. My name is Olufemi Ali. The federal government and the Academic Staff Union of Universities ASU have signed a new agreement aimed at improving the quality of the university education system and ensuring stability. The new agreement replaces the 2009 pact that triggered several industrial actions over unresolved issues. The signing and unveiling of the agreement took place on Wednesday at the Tertiary Education Trust Fund Conference Hall in Maitama, Abuja. The ceremony was attended by several dignitaries, including the Minister of Education, Tunji Alausa, and the Minister of State for Education, Shuaiba Ahmed. Speaking at the unveiling of the agreement, ASU President Chris Iwuna said despite the union's history with the federal government, it remains optimistic that things will be different this time. He expressed hope that the union would not need to issue a strike threat before the federal government implements the agreement reached by both parties. Also speaking at the event, the Minister of Education described the new agreement with ASU as a decisive turning point in the history of Nigeria's tertiary education system.
Failing a document, it symbolizes renewed trust, restored confidence, and a decisive turning point in the history of Nigeria tertiary education system. Today's agreement is a clear and deliberate with unprecedented demonstration of the accessible and uninterrupted academic calendars for all Nigerian students in a tertiary institution. Mr. President, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's benevolence, courage, and conviction are unmistakably evident throughout this process. He understands deeply that education is the bedrock of any modern, productive, and prosperous society. That is why, for the first time in the history of this country, a sitting president took full control, full ownership of this long-standing challenge that confronted our educational system and accorded its leadership attention to getting us to where we are today. For decades, unresolved remunerations concerns, welfare gaps, and recurring industrial disputes disrupted academic calendars, undermined staff morale, and threatened the future of our young citizens. Under the leadership of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, we deliberately chose dialogue over discord, reform over delay, and resolution over rhetorics.
Into politics, the impeachment move against Rivers State Governor Siminalayi Fubara and his deputy Ngozi Odu suffered another setback as two more members of the State House of Assembly have withdrawn their support for the process. They called for a peaceful resolution of the political crisis in the state. Barile Nwako, who represents Akana Constituency 1, and Emilia Amadi of Obiakpo Constituency 2 made their positions known barely 48 hours after two other lawmakers announced a similar decision. Although the legislators maintained that the governor and his deputy may have breached constitutional provisions, they said that their change of stance followed interventions by respected leaders and stakeholders who appealed for restraint in the interest of peace and stability in the state. With the latest development, 4 of the 26 lawmakers who initially endorsed the notice of alleged gross misconduct have now distanced themselves from the impeachment move, signaling growing calls within the Assembly for dialogue rather than confrontation. The Rivers State House of Assembly is expected to reconvene plenary on January 15, 2026, as attention shifts to how the leadership of the House will navigate the deepening divisions.
We have been inundated with calls from some of our leaders and Rivers people begging that we seek a political solution to this problem created by the governor and the deputy governor. On this call, we hereby state our willingness to look at a political solution rather than an outright removal of the due. We call on our members to also consider this approach. We do not say this as a sign of weakness, but because we have forgiving hearts and as mothers. It is our hope and expectation that assurances will come from the governor and the deputy governor that they will retrace their steps and govern in a line with the Constitution as kept to all agreements enter with the supervision of Mr. President.
I represent the FCT Minister, His Excellency, Chief Barrister Ezewonye Sowike. He is my constituent. And I want to let you know that before coming for this press briefing, that I informed him. I told him of it. But he said to me that I should do whatever my conscience tells me to do, in line with the Constitution, and keep all agreements entered with the supervision of Mr. President, for the good and betterment of Rivers State and Nigeria.
The national leader of the New Nigeria People's Party, NNPP, Rabiu Kwankwaso, has dismissed reports claiming he endorsed the rumored defection of the governor of Kano State, Abba Yusuf, to the All Progressives Congress, APC. Speculation has intensified in recent days that Governor Yusuf is finalizing plans to leave the NNPP for the APC. Reports on Tuesday night further alleged that Kwankwaso, a former governor of Kano State and presidential candidate of the NNPP, had reversed his earlier position to such a move and given his approval. However, Kwankwaso's media aide Saifullahi Hassan described the claims as false and misleading. Hassan stressed that Governor Yusuf was elected on the NNPP platform and remains a member of the party. In a separate reaction, NNPP spokesperson Ladi Johnson also refuted the reports, describing them as deliberate falsehoods. The Federal High Court in Abuja has fixed January 23, 2025 for the hearing of an application for stay of further proceedings filed by the Kabiru Turaki-led People's Democratic Party against the suit instituted by the faction aligned with the FCT Minister Nyesom Wike. Justice Joyce Abdul Malik adjourned the matter on Wednesday to enable counsel for the plaintiffs, Onyechi Ekpeazu, respond to the stay application. The Wike-led PDP, through its acting national chairman Mohammed Abdul Rahman and factional national secretary Samuel Nyau, has filed the suit. They're seeking an order restraining the Turaki-led leadership from parading themselves as representatives of the PDP and stopping the police and the Department of State Services from allowing them access to the party's national secretariat at Wadata Plaza, Abuja. The Wike-led PDP also asked the court to restrain the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, from accepting any office address from the Turaki faction other than the one already in its records, and to declare that INEC, the police, and the DSS are bound to enforce earlier judgments and rulings delivered by Justice James Omotosho and Peter Alifu Justice Abdul Malik had earlier granted an ex parte order directing parties not to take any step pending the determination of the suit. Justice Muhammad Umar of the Federal High Court in Abuja has adjourned the 1.2 billion naira fundamental rights enforcement suit filed by human rights activist Omoyele Sowore against the Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetokun and other defendants to March 10 for a definite hearing. Sowore has sued the IGP and others over his arrest, detention and arraignment of police in Abuja. Informed the court that the matter was slated for mention and all the defendants who had been served the hearing notice were not in court. He prayed the court that the matter be deemed mentioned and a date be fixed for a definite hearing and adoption of processes. Consequently, the trial judge, Justice Muhammad Umar, adjourned the matter till March 10 for a definite hearing and directed that the hearing notice be served on all defendants. Sowore is seeking multiple declarations that his arrest, harassment, restraint, and subsequent arraignment on October 23 and 24, 2025 were illegal, oppressive, and unlawful. In other news, no fewer than 17 tricycles and 2 petrol tankers were destroyed following 2 separate fire outbreaks at filling stations in Kano State on Tuesday. The Public Relations Officer, Kano State Fire Service, Saminu Abdullahi, confirmed the incident in a statement on Wednesday. Abdullahi said the first incident happened at AA Ayagi filling station, Kanye Village, along Kwazo Road in Kabo local government area of the state around 8:45 p.m. He said at the time of the incident, 2 compartments had already been discharged into an underground tank, while 3 remaining compartments containing approximately 5,000 liters of petrol products were in the process of being offloaded. Ardents that the inferno completely destroyed the tanker truck. Abdullahi noted that the second incident happened at the Al Wahida Nigeria Limited petrol filling station at Rimin Kebe Kashan Nasarawa local government area, where a petrol tanker carried about 45,000 liters of petroleum products. He said the fire was contained and prevented from a further spread, and a portion of the petroleum product as well as parts of the tanker body were saved. In Sokoto State, stakeholders from the troubled Eastern Senatorial District have called on the government and security agencies to come to the aid of the TD Ballet and other communities sacked by the activities of a notorious bandit leader, Bello Taji. Secretary of the Sokoto Eastern Zone Development Association, Mwazu Shamaki, confirmed that the recent video circulating on social media where members of Tidibale are seen vacating their communities following alleged threat from Bello Taji was a trend that had subjected residents to untold hardship. He noted that residents were hoping security agencies would help in pushing back the terrorists so they could return to their ancestral homes. Also speaking on the matter, Bashiru Guyawa Isa said some of the affected members of the community were now taking refuge in some communities in the Niger Republic. He also appealed for timely intervention to salvage the situation, as many communities have been deserted. Unconfirmed videos on social media showed some residents fleeing in overloaded vehicles. There have also been reports of bandits fleeing to other parts of the country after the bombardment of terrorist camps in Sokoto by the U.S. government in December 2025. In a move to boost the economy of the state, hundreds of vulcanizers across 9 federal constituencies in Ashanti State were trained and empowered at a one-day workshop put together by the Ministry of Cooperatives and Empowerment. It was done in collaboration with the Federal Road Safety Corps, Osun Command. Lydia Adebaji was there and now reports.
Organizers gathered in their hundreds from across the state at a one-day training and empowerment program put together by the Osun State Ministry of Cooperatives and Empowerment. The two-in-one event, done in collaboration with the Federal Road Safety Corps Osun Command, aims to improve the vocational knowledge of the participants. Flagging off the one-day training, Governor Ademola Adeleke said the initiative is part of efforts to improve the economy of Osun State and will feature the distribution of tire and pressure gauge to the participants. Represented by his deputy, Prince Kola Adewusi, the governor urged beneficiaries drawn from across the state to ensure they take the training seriously and to transform the knowledge into growth.
To the beneficiaries drawn from the state's 9 federal constituencies, I urge you to use this opportunity wisely, grow your businesses, serve your communities responsibly, and be true ambassadors of the Imole spirit. To other artisans across Osun State, be assured that more empowerment programs will follow. Please do not lose hope. I want to passionately encourage all participants to take this training seriously.
Earlier in his opening remarks at the event, Commissioner for Cooperatives and Empowerment, Prince Bayo Ogungbamigbe, described the event as more than a ceremony, but a bold statement to the state's commitment to empowerment.
Today's event is not just another ceremony. It's a bold statement of our commitment to people-centered governance and inclusive development.
Similarly, the Federal Road Safety Sector Commander, Leye Aino Adegboyega, FSI, stressed the importance of the training, noting that helping the vulcanizers understand the uniqueness of tires would help curb avoidable road accidents. Speaking separately in an interview, Prince Ogungbamigbe disclosed that the program is one of many planned by the state government. He noted that the training will serve as a refresher course for the vulcanizers.
They've been operating for the past 10-15 years. Most of them have not been able to undergo this type of training. So as a result, they have not been able to refresh their memory about the recent development in tire entire works. So that is why the government decided to organize this type of training. This is the beginning of the empowerment, at least for the artisans in the state. We have about 35 different artisans that the government will try and assist and give them proper empowerment to enable them be effective.
Some of the beneficiaries of the initiative, Mr. Bello Abdurrahuf from Ila and Mr. Olalekan Abadansi from Ile-Ife, expressed their appreciation for such a program, also noting that the pressure gauge given to them is an important tool in their work.
It's a nice initiative, and I make sure it's going to help the organizers to perform their duty very well. Gauge is just like pen for a student. So if you are going to school without pen, so what do you want to use to write anything you want to write? So gauge is like, if you don't have gauge, after patching the tire, put pressure, you must know the pressure that is inside the gauge.
We so really appreciate the governor of Osun State for this empowerment, for all the Osun State organizers. We appreciate and thank you, Mr. Governor.
The program then proceeded into training sessions by educators from the Federal Road Safety Corps Osun Command, following which participants were presented with certificates of participation alongside empowerment packages. The empowerment program promises to reach other artisans in Osun State. Lydia Adegbaju, Western Spring Television News.
Still to come. INEC publishes revised register of voters for Federal Capital Territory ahead of the February 21, 2026 area council election, the total number of registered voters rising to 1.6 million. We'll bring you more on this when we return.